The crystal tumbler shattered against the marble fireplace, sending amber liquid and glass fragments across the pristine penthouse floor. Zain al-Rashid didn't flinch. From 40 stories above Boston, the city lights blurred through his tears as he pressed his forehead against the cold glass. The note on his desk was brief, just 4 sentences explaining what to do with his billions after he was gone. 5 years. 5 years since the brakes failed on that mountain road in Switzerland, sending his parents and sister plummeting to their deaths while he watched helplessly from the second car. 5 years of nightmares, suspicions, and a growing certainty that it hadn't been an accident at all. Zain loosened his tie and moved to his desk, running his finger over the silver-framed photograph, the last family portrait before the crash. His father, Khalid, stood proudly beside his longtime business partner Marcus Blackwood, their wives elegant in evening wear, his sister Sarah laughing between them. The two families united by business, friendship, and secrets Zain was still trying to unravel. His phone vibrated. Another message from Tallulah Blackwood. Since her father's mysterious death 6 months after the al-Rashid tragedy, she'd been relentless in her pursuit to rekindle their former engagement. Zain deleted the message without reading it. Whatever history their families shared, he couldn't bear her calculated affection now. The Wall Street Journal alert flashed on his screen. Al-Rashid Industries announces record philanthropy initiative. His final act, pledging 90% of his fortune to humanitarian causes, was public now. He'd make the arrangements tomorrow, but tonight would be his last in this glass prison of wealth and painful memories. Across town, fluorescent lights flickered over Ilara Nightingale as she checked vital signs for the 6th time that hour. Her second consecutive 12-hour shift at Massachusetts General Hospital was nearly over, but her real work would begin when she got home. "Nightingale, there's a call for you at the nurse's station." The charge nurse's voice held unusual gentleness. "It's about your grandmother." Ilara's heart dropped as she hurried down the corridor, her practical shoes squeaking against the polished floor. Her grandmother Eleanor was all she had left in the world, the woman who had raised her after her parents died in a house fire when she was 12. "Ms. Phillips from the pharmacy," the desk clerk said, handing her the phone. "This is Ilara," she said, twisting the phone cord around her finger. "I'm sorry to call you at work, dear, but your grandmother's medication, there's been another price increase. Insurance won't cover the difference." Ilara closed her eyes, calculating quickly. How much? $1,200 for a month's supply now. Nearly double. With her student loans and their rent, it was impossible. The autoimmune disease that had plagued Eleanor for years was manageable with the right medication, but without it. "I'll figure something out," Ilara promised, though she had no idea how. As she hung up, Dr. Remington Knox approached, his perfectly pressed lab coat and carefully styled hair contrasting with her rumpled scrubs and messy bun. "Nightingale, a word?" His smile never reached his eyes. "I've been reviewing your application for the advanced clinical program." Her future hung on this moment. The program would fast-track her to medical school while providing a stipend that could help with her grandmother's care. "Your qualifications are impressive," Knox continued, "but there are other considerations. The selection committee values certain connections, certain social advantages that enhance the hospital's profile." The subtext was clear. She lacked the right background, the right connections, the right bank account. "I understand," she said, though rage boiled beneath her professional veneer. "There's a fundraising gala next weekend. Several committee members will attend. Perhaps if you were to make an appearance, demonstrate your social graces." He let the suggestion hang in the air. "I'll try to be there," she said, knowing the ticket price alone would equal half her rent. Outside, fat snowflakes began falling as weather alerts buzzed on phones throughout the hospital. The storm they'd been tracking for days was intensifying, promising to paralyze the city by morning. Ilara checked her watch. If she hurried, she might beat the worst of it home. Her grandmother needed her medication tonight. As she clocked out, the hospital administrator was already announcing contingency plans. Staff may be required to remain on premises if conditions deteriorate. The Al-Rashid Plaza Hotel has generously offered rooms for essential personnel who live outside the immediate area. The irony wasn't lost on Ilara. The luxury hotel owned by one of Boston's wealthiest men might shelter her tonight, while she couldn't afford her grandmother's medicine. Across the city, Zane stood at his penthouse window watching the snow transform Boston into a blank canvas. His phone rang, the hotel manager. Mr. Al-Rashid, with the storm worsening, we've activated the emergency protocol per your standing instructions. Massachusetts General has accepted our offer of rooms for their staff. Zane nodded absently. Good. Make sure they have everything they need. His father had established the protocol years ago, one of the few traditions Zane had maintained. He ended the call and returned to his desk, picking up the note he'd written earlier. Maybe the storm was an omen, nature agreeing that tonight should be his last. The city would be buried in white while he finally found peace. But first, he needed to check on the hotel arrangements. If this was to be his last act of responsibility as head of Al-Rashid Industries, he would ensure it was done properly. His father would have expected nothing less. He slipped the suicide note into his pocket. It could wait a few more hours. The elevator doors closed on two souls, one wealthy beyond measure, one struggling to survive, each empty in their own way, neither knowing how completely their lives were about to collide. The first power line snapped at midnight. By 2 a.m., half of Boston was dark. The meteorologists had underestimated the storm's ferocity. 2 feet of snow already blanketed the city, with another foot expected before dawn. Governor Collins declared a state of emergency as the National Guard mobilized. Boston had effectively shut down. Alara pressed her face against the frosted hospital window, watching ambulances struggle through the unplowed streets. The pharmacy had closed before she could get her grandmother's medication. Her phone showed 5 missed calls from Eleanor, then nothing. The cellular network overloaded or down. The knot in her stomach tightened. Nightingale. Dr. Knox's voice cut through the quiet hospital corridor. We need extra hands in the ER. And afterward, report to administration. They're assigning hotel rooms to stranded staff. I can't stay, sir. My grandmother. Nobody's going anywhere, he snapped. Roads are impassable. The National Guard is turning back all non-emergency vehicles. Alara bit her lip until she tasted blood. I need to call her. Use the landlines at the nurse's station. They're still working. His expression softened slightly. 1 call, then ER. 20 minutes and a dozen busy signals later, she finally heard Eleanor's tremulous voice. Grandma, I can't get home. The roads, I know, dear. The TV's still working. Are you safe? I'm at the hospital. But your medicine, don't worry about that. Mrs. Abernathy from 3B checked on me. She has some soup, and I still have pills from yesterday. The lie was transparent. Eleanor had taken her last pill this morning. I'll find a way home, I promise. You'll do no such thing, young lady. Stay put until it's safe. After hanging up, Alara fought back tears as she headed to the ER. For the next 6 hours, she helped treat frostbite victims, heart attacks from overexertion while shoveling, and car accident injuries. When her shift finally ended, exhaustion hit her like a physical blow. At the administration desk, a harried clerk handed her a keycard. Al-Rashid Plaza, room 1217. The shuttle leaves in 20 minutes from the emergency entrance. Alara stared at the card. The 5-star hotel normally charged more per night than she made in 2 days. There must be a mistake. No mistake. Mr. Al-Rashid opened the entire hotel to essential personnel. The shuttle's making trips every hour. Across the city, Zane paced his private office on the top floor of the Al-Rashid Plaza. Sleep had eluded him, as it often did on the anniversary of the accident. Instead, he'd spent the night overseeing the hotel's emergency response, watching as hundreds of doctors, nurses, and first responders filled his rooms. Mr. Al-Rashid, his hotel manager, Lawrence Winters, appeared at the door. The last shuttle from Mass General just arrived. Zane nodded, glancing at the security monitors showing snow-covered figures hurrying into the lobby. One slight figure caught his attention, a young woman in scrubs clutching a tattered backpack, looking utterly out of place amid the marble and crystal chandeliers. Who is she? He asked, almost to himself. A nurse, I believe, Lawrence replied. Shall I check the registry? No. Zane waved him off. It doesn't matter. But something about her exhausted stance, the way she gazed around with both wonder and suspicion, held his attention longer than it should have. His phone vibrated with Tallullah's name again. This time, he answered. Darling, thank God you're safe. Her voice dripped with practiced concern. I've been worried sick. I'm fine, Tallullah. The news said you've opened the hotel to hospital staff. So charitable. My father would have been proud. Zane's jaw tightened. Is there something you need? Don't be cold. I'm flying back tomorrow, storm permitting. We should have dinner. Discuss your new philanthropy initiative. People are talking, Zane. They're worried about your state of mind. With good reason, he thought. I'm busy, Tallulah. The hotel requires my attention. Since when do you personally manage hotel operations? Her laugh was like glass breaking. Don't shut me out. Whatever you're planning, whatever this grand gesture means, he ended the call, returning his attention to the monitors. The young nurse had disappeared from view. Alara stood under the shower's scalding spray, watching hospital grime swirl down the drain. The bathroom in her room was larger than her entire apartment, with marble countertops and plush towels monogrammed with the Al-Rashid insignia. After changing into her spare scrubs, the only clean clothes in her backpack, she tried calling Eleanor again. Still no signal. The room phone yielded only busy signals. Her stomach growled, reminding her she hadn't eaten since yesterday's stale cafeteria sandwich. The hotel information tablet mentioned a 24-hour staff dining room on the mezzanine level. In the elevator, Alara pressed M and leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. The events of the day crashed over her. The medication she couldn't afford, her stranded grandmother, the endless stream of patients. The elevator lurched to a stop between floors. The lights flickered once, twice, then died, plunging her into darkness. No, no, no. She fumbled for the emergency button, finding it by touch. Nothing happened. No alarm, no response. The backup lights came on, casting an eerie glow. Through the small window in the elevator door, she could see only darkness beyond. Another power outage. Alara slid down the wall to the floor, drawing her knees to her chest. Of all times to be trapped. Her grandmother alone without medication, possibly without heat if the building's backup generator failed. A voice came through the small speaker. Hello? Is someone in there? Yes. I'm stuck. The power grid is down again. Backup generators are running the critical systems, but the elevators are temporarily offline. Engineering is working on it. How long? A pause. An hour, maybe 2. She closed her eyes. Great. I apologize for the inconvenience. Are you all right? Not claustrophobic, I hope. The voice was male, with the faintest accent she couldn't place, something aristocratic and foreign, yet distinctly American. I'm fine. Just tired. And hungry. What's your name? Alara. Alara Nightingale. Like Florence? A nurse with a predestined name. Despite everything, she smiled. Actually, I'm named after one of Jupiter's moons. My parents were astronomers. Were. They died when I was 12. House fire. Why had she shared that? Something about the disembodied voice, the darkness, the strange intimacy of crisis. I'm sorry, he said, and unlike the reflexive condolences she usually received, his sounded sincere. It was a long time ago. My grandmother raised me. Is she here with you? No, she's alone in our apartment. Without her medication. The words tumbled out. I couldn't get to the pharmacy before the storm hit. She has an autoimmune condition that requires daily treatment, and we can't afford. She stopped herself. Sorry, you don't need to hear all this. Silence stretched between them. She thought perhaps he'd gone. What's her name? He finally asked. Eleanor. Eleanor Nightingale. And what medication does she need? Alara hesitated, then named the expensive immunosuppressant. That's a serious drug, he remarked. Are you a doctor? No, just someone who recognizes pharmaceutical names. Another pause. The elevator company has been notified. It shouldn't be much longer. Thank you. I didn't catch your name. The silence returned, longer this time. Zane, he finally said. Are you stuck in an elevator too, Zane? In a manner of speaking. His voice had changed, grown distant. We're all trapped somewhere, wouldn't you say? Before she could respond, the elevator jerked, then began a slow descent. The regular lights flickered back on. Powers restored to this section, Zane's voice announced. You'll reach the lobby in a moment. Thank you for keeping me company, she said. It was my pleasure, Alara Nightingale. The elevator doors opened on the opulent lobby. A security guard waited with an apologetic smile. Sorry about that, miss. The manager sent me to escort you to the dining room. As she followed him, Alara glanced at the security desk, wondering which of the uniforms had been her elevator companion. None looked up. In his office, Zane switched off the emergency elevator intercom and stared at the screen showing Alara following the guard. Something about her honesty, her unvarnished worry for her grandmother, had touched him. He couldn't remember the last time he'd spoken to someone who didn't want something from him. For the first time in 5 years, the crushing weight on his chest seemed a fraction lighter. He reached for the suicide note in his pocket, held it for a long moment, then slowly tore it in half. Not tonight, at least. Morning arrived with blinding brilliance, sunlight reflecting off mountains of snow. Boston remained paralyzed, streets impassable except to emergency vehicles. The news reported power outages affecting thousands, temperatures plunging below zero, and no relief expected for at least 48 hours. Alara woke disoriented, momentarily confused by the luxurious surroundings. The events of the previous night came rushing back. The elevator, the mysterious voice, her grandmother alone without medication. She reached for her phone. Still no service. A knock at the door revealed a hotel employee with a garment bag. Compliments of management, the young woman said. Clean uniforms for hospital staff. The hotel is offering laundry service for your personal items as well. Inside the bag, Alara found crisp scrubs in her size, along with toiletries and a note. The staff dining room is serving breakfast until 10 a.m. Shuttles to Massachusetts General resume at 8 a.m. The thoughtfulness surprised her. She showered quickly and headed downstairs, still worried about Eleanor, but grateful for small mercies. The dining room buzzed with doctors and nurses in various states of exhaustion. Alara filled a plate with eggs and toast, then found an empty seat beside a surgical resident she recognized. Some storm, the resident said. They're saying it might be days before power is fully restored. Have you heard anything about residential areas? Alara asked. My grandmother, National Guard, is going door to door in elderly housing. Your grandmother's building. Alara gave the address. That's in Zone 3. They should reach her today. Relief washed over her. At least Eleanor wouldn't be completely alone. After breakfast, Alara approached the concierge. Is there any way to get a message to someone in the city? The phones, I'm sorry, miss. Communication systems are overloaded. He hesitated. However, if it's an emergency, Mr. Al-Rashid has made satellite phones available for staff with urgent family situations. That would be incredible. My grandmother needs medication, and I need to make sure she's okay. I'll add you to the list. Report to the business center at noon. Alara thanked him profusely. As she turned to leave, she nearly collided with a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit. I'm so sorry, she began, then froze. The man staring back at her was undeniably handsome, with olive skin, precisely trimmed dark beard, and intense eyes that seemed to look straight through her. Something about him was eerily familiar. No harm done, he said, and she immediately recognized the voice from the elevator. You're Zane, she blurted. His expression shifted from polite indifference to recognition, then guarded caution. And you're Alara Nightingale, the nurse trapped in my elevator. Your elevator? Then understanding dawned. You're Mr. Al-Rashid. He nodded almost imperceptibly. I thought you were security staff, or I didn't realize. She was babbling now, embarrassed by her presumption and the personal details she'd shared with a billionaire hotel owner. Would you have spoken differently had you known? He asked. The question caught her off guard. Probably, she admitted. That's why I didn't specify. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. People tend to become different versions of themselves around me. Before she could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at it with obvious distaste. Excuse me, I need to take this. He stepped away, then paused and turned back. I hope your grandmother gets her medication. With that, he was gone, swallowed by a group of executives in matching suits. Alara stood rooted to the spot, processing what had just happened. Not only had she poured out her worries to one of Boston's wealthiest men, but he'd remembered them, remembered her. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Alara was assigned to a hospital shuttle, where she threw herself into work, triaging patients and trying not to think about her grandmother or her mortifying encounter with Zain al-Rashid. At noon, she returned to the hotel and made her way to the business center. A line had already formed for the satellite phones. As she waited, a hotel manager approached. Ms. Nightingale, please come with me. She followed him to a private office where a satellite phone waited on the desk. You have priority access, he explained. Mr. Al-Rashid's instructions. Heat rose to her cheeks as she dialed Eleanor's number. After 3 rings, her grandmother answered. Grandma, thank God. Are you okay? I'm fine, dear. The National Guard came by this morning. They brought emergency supplies and checked the heat. What about your medication? Don't worry about that. I'm managing. Alara knew what that meant. Eleanor was rationing her remaining pills, taking half doses or skipping them entirely. The thought made her stomach clench. Listen, I'm trying to find a way to get your prescription. There's a pharmacy at the hospital that might be open. Don't you dare try to come home in this weather, Alara Marie Nightingale. I won't, but no buts. I survived the blizzard of 78. This is nothing. The call ended too soon, leaving Alara both relieved and more worried. As she left the office, she nearly collided with Zain again, this time with a striking blonde woman clinging to his arm. Mr. Al-Rashid, Alara said, stepping back. Thank you for the phone access. The blonde's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. Zain, darling, aren't you going to introduce us? Something hardened in Zain's expression. Tallulah Blackwood, this is Alara Nightingale, one of the nurses from Massachusetts General. Tallulah's smile didn't reach her eyes. How charming. Zain's always had a soft spot for charity cases. She tightened her grip on his arm. We're late for lunch, darling. Alara felt her face burn. Excuse me, she mumbled, hurrying away. Behind her, she heard the woman's musical laugh. Really, Zain, the staff? I thought we discussed maintaining appropriate boundaries. Alara quickened her pace, humiliation burning in her chest. Of course Zain al-Rashid had a beautiful, wealthy girlfriend. Of course she, Alara, was nothing but a charity case, a momentary distraction during a crisis. The sooner she forgot about their strange connection, the better. As she rounded the corner, she crashed into a red-haired woman carrying a stack of folders. Papers flew everywhere. I'm so sorry. Alara knelt to help gather them. It's fine, the woman said, hastily collecting what appeared to be financial documents. These shouldn't even be out of the secure area. Something about the woman seemed familiar. Do you work at the hospital? The redhead looked up sharply. No, I'm executive administrative staff here. Meredith Caldwell. She extended her hand, then withdrew it suddenly as footsteps approached. Meredith. Zain's voice was cooler than when he'd spoken to Alara. I need those quarterly projections immediately. Yes, sir. I was just bringing them to your office. Meredith clutched the folders protectively. Ms. Nightingale. He nodded toward Alara, his expression unreadable. Mr. Al-Rashid. She matched his formality, determined to show no hint of the embarrassment she still felt. Ms. Blackwood. Tallulah barely glanced at her. Zain, Senator Williams is expecting our call at 1. A muscle twitched in Zain's jaw. I'm aware. Something passed between him and Tallulah. Tension, perhaps, or an unspoken argument. Then he turned to Meredith. My office. 5 minutes. As the trio disappeared down the corridor, Alara couldn't help feeling she'd witnessed something significant, though she couldn't have said what. The dynamic between them seemed charged with undercurrents she couldn't decipher. Back in her room, Alara found a package waiting on her bed, a bottle of her grandmother's medication with a month's supply, along with a note. Delivered to Eleanor Nightingale at 12:30 p.m. by courier. Confirmation of receipt attached. There was no signature, but she knew. Somehow, Zain al-Rashid had not only remembered her grandmother's medication, but had procured it and delivered it during a state of emergency. The relief that flooded her was immediately followed by confusion, suspicion, and an emotion she couldn't quite name. Why would a billionaire go to such lengths for a stranger? What did he want in return? She sat on the edge of the bed, the bottle clutched in her hand, torn between gratitude and wariness. In her experience, people, especially wealthy, powerful people, didn't give without expecting something back. What exactly did Zain al-Rashid want from her? Meanwhile, in his private office, Zain stared out at the snow-covered city, ignoring Tallulah's monologue about their social obligations once the storm passed. His thoughts kept returning to the nurse with the exhausted eyes and fierce love for her grandmother. Are you even listening to me? Tallulah demanded. No, he admitted. She huffed dramatically. What's gotten into you? First this ridiculous hotel giveaway. Now you're distracted by some nobody nurse. Enough, Tallulah. Is this about the anniversary? The accident? You know I'm here for you, darling. I understand your pain better than anyone. Did she? Zain wondered. Or was her sympathetic expression just another mask, like the ones they all wore in their world of wealth and privilege? For a brief moment in that elevator, speaking to a stranger in the dark, he'd removed his mask. The memory lingered, uncomfortable yet compelling, like stepping into sunlight after years in shadow. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Al-Rashid, Meredith Caldwell is here with the files you requested. Send her in." As Meredith entered, Zayn noticed a strange look pass between her and Tallulah. Recognition, perhaps, or something more complex. "The quarterly projections," Meredith said, placing the folders on his desk. "Thank you." He opened the top folder, then froze at what he saw beneath the financial statements. A newspaper clipping from 5 years ago about the accident that killed his family, with handwritten notes in the margin. He glanced up sharply, but Meredith's face revealed nothing. "Will there be anything else, Mr. Al-Rashid?" "No," he said slowly. "That will be all." As she left, Zayn carefully slid the clipping into his pocket, away from Tallulah's prying eyes. Someone was sending him a message, but was it a threat or an offer of help? Outside the window, the snow continued to fall, burying secrets old and new beneath its pristine white surface. 3 days after the blizzard, Boston slowly returned to life. Roads were cleared, power restored to most neighborhoods, and the state of emergency lifted. Massachusetts General resumed normal operations, though many staff continued staying at the Al-Rashid Plaza, including Alara. She had tried to check out twice, explaining that she could now return home to her grandmother, but each time was told her stay had been extended by management. The implication was clear: Zayn Al-Rashid wanted her to remain. What wasn't clear was why. Since their awkward encounter in the lobby, she'd caught glimpses of him from afar, conferring with hotel executives, speaking with emergency officials, once leaving the building with Tallulah Blackwood on his arm. Each time, he nodded politely if their eyes met, but maintained a deliberate distance. Meredith Caldwell, however, seemed to appear wherever Alara went: the dining room, the business center, once even on the hospital shuttle. The redhead never approached directly, but Alara often felt her watching with curious intensity. On her 4th night at the hotel, Alara received an urgent call from the hospital. Her grandmother had been admitted to the emergency room. Severe autoimmune flare-up, Dr. Knox explained when Alara arrived, breathless from running. The stress of the storm, medication irregularity, it's a perfect storm of triggers. Eleanor lay small and pale against the hospital sheets, her breath labored. Monitors beeped steadily, for fluids dripping into her veins. "Why wasn't I notified immediately?" Alara demanded, checking the chart herself. Knox's expression was unreadable. Protocol was followed: Nurse Nightingale. "Your grandmother received immediate attention upon arrival." Something in his tone raised alarm bells. Alara examined the chart more carefully. The admission time was 3 hours before she'd been called. "Who ordered these treatments?" she asked, noting medications and dosages that seemed excessive for Eleanor's condition. "I did," Knox replied smoothly, "based on her history and presenting symptoms. Some of these medications interact. Are you questioning my medical judgment, Nurse Nightingale?" Before Alara could respond, a tall figure appeared in the doorway. Zayn Al-Rashid, immaculate in a charcoal suit despite the late hour, surveyed the scene with sharp eyes. "Dr. Knox," he said, "the hospital administrator told me I'd find you here." Knox straightened, his demeanor instantly shifting from confrontational to deferential. "Mr. Al-Rashid, this is unexpected. How can I help you?" "The Foundation Board meeting has been rescheduled. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Zayn's gaze moved to Eleanor, then Alara. "Ms. Nightingale, I wasn't aware your grandmother was hospitalized." "Just admitted," Alara said, still processing his sudden appearance. Knox interjected, "Mr. Al-Rashid serves on the board of the hospital's largest donor foundation." Something passed between the two men, some unspoken tension Alara couldn't decipher. "How is she?" Zayn asked, nodding toward Eleanor. "Stable," Knox answered before Alara could speak. "Though we're monitoring closely." Alara bit back her concerns about the treatment plan, unwilling to debate medical decisions in front of Zayn. "If you'll excuse me," Knox said, "I have other patients to check. Ms. Nightingale, we'll discuss your grandmother's care in the morning. Mr. Al-Rashid, I'll see you at the board meeting." After Knox departed, an awkward silence filled the room. Alara busied herself adjusting Eleanor's blankets, acutely aware of Zayn's presence. "Thank you," she finally said, "for the medication delivery during the storm. I never had a chance to properly express my gratitude." "No gratitude necessary." His voice was low, careful. It was a small matter. Not to us. She met his gaze directly. That medication costs more than my monthly rent. During a state emergency, it was... She trailed off, unable to articulate exactly what it had been. A miracle. An inexplicable act of kindness from a stranger. How long has she been ill? He asked, moving closer to the bed. The autoimmune disease was diagnosed 8 years ago. It's manageable with the right medication, but... She shrugged, the gesture encompassing all the challenges, financial, logistical, emotional, of caring for a chronically ill loved one. You care for her alone. She cared for me after my parents died. It's my turn now. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Family is everything. The simple statement carried weight, resonant with his own loss. For a moment, they were just two people who understood grief, stripped of the barriers of wealth and status. Eleanor stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Alara. Her voice was weak. I'm here, Grandma. Alara took her hand. Eleanor's gaze shifted to Zain, confusion evident. Who? This is Mr. Al-Rashid, Grandma. He owns the hotel where I've been staying. Recognition dawned on Eleanor's face. The young man who sent my medicine. She extended her free hand toward him. Thank you. To Alara's surprise, Zain took the offered hand gently. It was nothing, Mrs. Nightingale. Eleanor, please. She studied him with the directness of the elderly. You have kind eyes. Sad, but kind. Color touched Zain's cheeks. Embarrassment, perhaps, at being so easily read by this frail woman. I should go, he said, releasing Eleanor's hand. I hope you feel better soon. At the door, he paused. Ms. Nightingale, if you need anything, for yourself or your grandmother, please don't hesitate to ask. After he left, Eleanor gave Alara a knowing look. He likes you. Don't be ridiculous, Alara scoffed. He's being kind because it's good PR for his hotel and the hospital foundation. I may be old, but I'm not blind. The way he looked at you. He has a girlfriend, Alara said, remembering Talalia's possessive grip on Zain's arm. A beautiful, wealthy socialite who fits perfectly into his world. Eleanor patted her hand. The heart doesn't care about fitting in, dear. Alara changed the subject, focusing on her grandmother's symptoms and treatment plan. She spent the night in the uncomfortable visitor's chair, waking every hour to check Eleanor's vitals herself, increasingly concerned about the aggressive medication protocol Knox had prescribed. Near dawn, she stepped into the hallway to stretch her legs and found Zain standing at the window at the end of the corridor, staring out at the Boston skyline as night gave way to morning. You're still here, she said, surprise overriding propriety. He turned, and she was struck by the exhaustion etched on his face. I had some foundation business to review before the meeting. It was a reasonable explanation, but Alara sensed it wasn't the whole truth. How is your grandmother? He asked. Resting. Some of her medications seem. She hesitated, unwilling to criticize Dr. Knox to someone who worked with him on the hospital board. Seem what? It's nothing. Alara. The sound of her name on his lips sent an unexpected warmth through her. If something concerns you about her care, tell me. The intensity in his gaze broke her resolve. The dosages are unusually high. Some of the combinations risk dangerous interactions, especially for someone her age with her liver function. Have you spoken to Knox? He dismissed my concerns. Reminded me I'm just a nurse, while he's the attending physician. Anger flashed across Zain's face. I'll speak with the hospital administrator. No. Alara touched his arm without thinking. Please don't. It would only make things worse. Dr. Knox is on the committee that decides whether I get into the advanced clinical program. If I challenge him publicly, understanding dawned in Zain's eyes. He'd retaliate professionally. I can handle this. I'll speak with Dr. Patel in geriatrics. She can review the chart without raising flags. Zain looked down at where her hand still rested on his arm. Alara withdrew it hastily, but he caught her wrist, his touch light but firm. Let me help, he said quietly, not as a board member or hotel owner, as someone who respects what you're doing for your grandmother. The contact between them felt charged, intimate in the empty pre-dawn corridor. His thumb moved almost imperceptibly against her pulse point, and Alara was suddenly, acutely aware of him not as Zain al-Rashid, billionaire, but as a man, compelling, intense, and standing much too close. She stepped back, breaking the connection. I appreciate the offer, but I need to handle this myself. Something like disappointment crossed his face, quickly masked. Of course. Forgive me for overstepping. You didn't, she began, but voices approached from around the corner. Zane. Tallullah's voice carried down the corridor. The car's waiting. We'll be late for breakfast with the governor. She appeared seconds later, resplendent in a designer suit, eyebrows rising at the sight of Alara in rumpled scrubs. Checking on hospital operations before the board meeting, Zane explained smoothly. How conscientious. Tallullah linked her arm through his. Though I'm sure the nursing staff can manage without your personal supervision. Alara forced a professional smile. Mr. Al-Rashid was inquiring about a patient. If you'll excuse me, I should get back to my grandmother. As she turned to leave, Zane reached out, briefly touching her wrist with 3 fingers, a gesture hidden from Tallullah's view. The contact was fleeting but deliberate, like a secret handshake or private acknowledgement. We'll continue our discussion later, he said, his public voice betraying nothing of the moment they'd shared. Throughout the day, as Alara advocated for adjustments to Eleanor's care and finally succeeded in getting Dr. Patel to review the chart, she found herself repeatedly touching her wrist where Zane's fingers had pressed. The gesture had felt significant, though she couldn't have explained why. That evening, after Eleanor had been moved to a regular room and her medications adjusted to more appropriate levels, Alara finally returned to the hotel. She found a note under her door requesting her presence at a patient welfare meeting in Conference Room B at 8 p.m. Curious and slightly wary, she showered, changed into fresh scrubs, and made her way to the designated room. Inside, she found Zane alone, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, surrounded by medical journals and research papers. You came, he said, looking up from his reading. What is this about? He gestured to the papers spread across the table. Research on your grandmother's condition. Treatment protocols, clinical trials, specialists. Alara stared in disbelief. You did all this today? I had my medical research team compile it. There's a specialist at Johns Hopkins who's pioneering a new approach to autoimmune disorders like your grandmother's. Less systemic suppression, more targeted therapy. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why would you do this for us? Zane was silent for a long moment. Because you remind me there are still genuine people in this world. Because your devotion to your grandmother shows a loyalty I thought was extinct. He looked away. Because for the first time in 5 years, I'm interested in something beyond my own pain. The raw honesty stunned her. This was the voice from the elevator, the real Zane beneath the polished exterior. I don't know what to say. Say you'll consider the Johns Hopkins option. I've arranged a consultation. I can't accept that. Financial reality intruded. The cost alone, the foundation will cover it. Completely above board, through existing patient assistance programs. She shook her head. Why do I feel like there's something you're not telling me? Zane's expression turned serious. Be careful of Dr. Knox. There are concerns about his practices. What kinds of concerns? Nothing proven yet. But the medication protocol he prescribed for your grandmother raised red flags with my research team. It matches patterns we're investigating. Patterns. Excessive medication, unnecessary treatments, particularly for patients with comprehensive insurance or foundation support. The implications were disturbing. You think he's deliberately over-medicating patients for financial gain. I think you were right to question his treatment plan. Zane's gaze was intense. And I think your grandmother is fortunate to have you watching over her. Alara absorbed this, anger and vindication warring within her. I should report him. Not yet. Without proof, it's your word against his. And as you said, he could damage your career. Their eyes met in shared understanding. Then, deliberately, Zane reached across the table and touched 3 fingers to her wrist, the same gesture from the hospital corridor. What does that mean? She asked softly. The 3 fingers. Something vulnerable crossed his face. In my culture, it's a gesture between trusted allies. A promise of loyalty. Are we allies, Mr. Al-Rashid? I'd like us to be. The simple statement carried weight far beyond its words. Alara knew she should leave, maintain professional distance, protect herself from whatever complex game was being played around her. Instead, she turned her wrist, allowing her pulse point to press against his fingers. Then, as allies, perhaps you should call me Alara. And you should call me Zane. Outside the conference room, Meredith Caldwell stepped away from the door she'd been monitoring, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. She slipped her phone from her pocket, scrolling to a particular contact. "It's happening," she texted. "He's connecting with her, just as we hoped. Tallulah won't be happy." The response came seconds later. "Good. Keep watching. Protection detail in place?" "Yes," she replied. "But we need to move carefully. Knox is suspicious, and Tallulah is dangerous when threatened." Meredith tucked her phone away, glancing back at the conference room door where, inside, Zane and Alara continued talking, unaware of the forces aligning both for and against them. "It's getting worse," Tallulah hissed, pacing Dr. Knox's office. "He's barely spoken to me in days, and he's spending every free moment researching autoimmune treatments for that nurse's grandmother." Knox leaned back in his leather chair, fingers steepled. The old woman responded well to the adjusted medications. "Too well. We've lost that leverage." "Then find another." Tallulah slammed her palm on his desk. "The board meeting is in 2 weeks. If Zane goes through with this ridiculous donation plan, we both lose everything." Knox's smile didn't reach his eyes. "There might be another way. The nurse, Alara, is applying for the advanced clinical program. Her acceptance depends entirely on my recommendation. So perhaps we create evidence suggesting she's been stealing medications. Nothing too dramatic, just enough to cast doubt on her character." Tallulah's eyes gleamed. "And when she's devastated, I'll be there for Zane, offering comfort and reminding him why he needs someone from his own world." As they plotted, neither noticed the small recording device beneath Knox's desk, its indicator light blinking steadily. 2 floors away, Meredith Caldwell downloaded file after file from the Al-Rashid Industries secure server. 5 years of financial records, accident reports, insurance claims, all related to the crash that killed Zane's family. The pattern emerging was disturbing. Her phone buzzed. "Progress," the text read. "Found something," she replied. "Large payments from Blackwood Industries to a Swiss account 3 days before the accident. Same account received another payment the day after. Keep digging. And watch the nurse. She's key to everything now." Meredith frowned at the cryptic response, wondering again exactly who she was working for and why Alara Nightingale had become so central to their plans. Across town, Alara sat beside Eleanor's hospital bed, explaining the Johns Hopkins treatment option. "It's experimental, but promising," she concluded. "And somehow, it's being covered by the hospital foundation." Eleanor studied her granddaughter. "This is Zain al-Rashid's doing, isn't it?" Alara nodded reluctantly. "What does he want in return?" "That's just it. Nothing, apparently." Eleanor's expression turned knowing. "Men like that always want something, dear." Before Alara could respond, a nurse entered with medication. Alara checked the labels habitually, then frowned. "This isn't on her updated chart. Dr. Patel discontinued this yesterday." The nurse looked confused. "Dr. Knox added it this morning. Said it was urgent." Dr. Knox isn't her attending physician anymore. Alarm bells rang in Alara's mind. "Let me see the order." The medication order bore Knox's signature, but something seemed off. Alara's instincts screamed warning. "I'm going to double-check this with Dr. Patel," she said, pocketing the paper. In the hallway, she nearly collided with Zane, who caught her shoulders to steady her. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately, reading her expression. She explained the medication discrepancy, showing him the order. His face darkened. "This isn't the first irregularity. My team found evidence of Knox prescribing unusual combinations for foundation-supported patients. Always expensive medications, always slightly over-documented. Insurance fraud?" Alara's heart raced. "But why risk it? He's already wealthy." "Not as wealthy as he needs to be," Zane said grimly. "He's heavily leveraged in a development project with Tallulah Blackwood." The information hit Alara like a physical blow. "They're working together? Could they be targeting my grandmother deliberately?" Zane hesitated, then touched her wrist with 3 fingers, their private signal of trust. "I believe they might be targeting you, because of me." "That makes no sense. We barely know each other." "Tallulah believes otherwise. She's noticed my interest in your grandmother's case." "In you." Heat rushed to Alara's face. "Your interest?" Their eyes met, a current passing between them that neither could deny. Zane's fingers moved from her wrist to her hand, intertwining with hers. "I've felt dead inside since my family's accident," he admitted softly. "Until I spoke with you in that elevator." The revelation stunned her. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, expression tensing. "It's Meredith." She's found something in the accident files. I need to go. What accident files? He hesitated. The investigation into my family's crash was closed too quickly. Meredith has been helping me re-examine the evidence. Why Meredith? Her mother was our family's housekeeper for 20 years. She grew up in our household, knows things others wouldn't notice. He squeezed her hand briefly. Be careful. Don't let Knox near your grandmother. After he left, Alara returned to Eleanor's room, instructing the staff that no medication changes were to be implemented without Dr. Patel's direct verbal confirmation. That evening, Alara found her locker at the hospital forced open, its contents scattered. Worse, her backpack had been opened, and inside was a bottle of the same prescription painkillers that had been missing from the pharmacy for weeks. Her blood ran cold. Someone was setting her up. Problem. Dr. Knox's voice came from behind her. Security mentioned a disturbance down here. Alara turned slowly, painfully aware how this looked. These aren't mine. Of course not. His smile was predatory. Just like that order in your pocket wasn't really signed by me. My handwriting is quite distinctive, you know. What do you want? She asked, suddenly understanding she was being blackmailed. Nothing difficult. Just withdraw your grandmother from consideration for the Johns Hopkins program. Tell Zain al-Rashid you've reconsidered his help. End whatever is developing between you. And if I refuse? Knox glanced meaningfully at the pill bottle. Drug theft is taken very seriously. Your career, your grandmother's care, both would be compromised. After he left, Alara sank onto a bench, head in her hands. She was trapped, outmaneuvered by people with power and resources she couldn't match. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Evidence in your locker. Don't touch it. Wait for security. Trust me. Minutes later, security arrived with Meredith Caldwell in tow. Ms. Nightingale, the security chief said, we received an anonymous tip about stolen medication. Alara's heart sank. This was it. The end of her career, her dreams, her ability to care for Eleanor. Check the pills, Meredith interjected. The lot numbers. Confused, the security chief examined the bottle, then radioed dispatch. After a moment, he nodded grimly. These aren't hospital stock. They're counterfeit, part of a black market investigation we've been running for months. Alara's knees nearly buckled with relief. Someone's trying to frame Ms. Nightingale, Meredith stated firmly. And I think I know who. You need to see this, Meredith said, placing a leather-bound document on Zane's desk. They were alone in his hotel office, blinds drawn against the evening darkness. I found it in your father's private vault. Zane opened the folder carefully. Inside was a contract dated 30 years earlier, bearing the signatures of his father Khalid al-Rashid and Marcus Blackwood. The Blackwood al-Rashid Commercial Alliance, he read aloud. I knew our families had business ties, but this... Keep reading, Meredith urged. Section 12. Zane flipped pages until he found it. In the event that either founding bloodline faces extinction or financial collapse, a matrimonial union between surviving heirs shall be considered to preserve the combined enterprise. His blood ran cold. A marriage clause? This reads like something from the Middle Ages. It was common in certain business dynasties when your father and Blackwood were building their empire, Meredith explained. A safeguard against hostile takeovers. But it says shall be considered, not mandated. Meredith turned to the last page, revealing an addendum dated just after Marcus Blackwood's death. This version has been modified. The revised clause was unmistakable. The last male heir of the al-Rashid line shall wed the last female heir of the Blackwood line to consolidate operations if either enterprise faces dissolution. The signature at the bottom approximated his father's, but something was off. This is forged, Zane said, studying it closely. My father would never have agreed to this. Besides, the original is merely suggestive, not binding. Tallulah doesn't know that, Meredith replied. She's been operating under the assumption that this gives her legal leverage over you and the Foundation assets. Zane paced his office. She altered a decades-old contract to force me into marriage? That's her grand plan. Not just marriage. Control. Meredith pulled out more documents. Al-Rashid Industries owns 60% of the hospital foundation. Blackwood Investments owns 20%. If you marry, combining your assets would give Tallulah effective control over the foundation and its considerable resources. And Knox? Where does he fit in? He manages the medical testing facilities funded by the foundation. Facilities that have been charging exorbitant rates for years, with the excess funneled into offshore accounts jointly held by Knox and Blackwood Investments. Zane's face darkened. They've been embezzling foundation money, using sick patients as cover, including Eleanor Nightingale. Meredith hesitated. But that's not all. I've been tracing financial records surrounding your family's accident. There were substantial payments. A knock interrupted them. Lawrence, the hotel manager, appeared with an urgent expression. Mr. Al-Rashid, Ms. Blackwood is here with the hospital board president. They're insisting on seeing you immediately. Zane exchanged glances with Meredith, who quickly gathered the documents. Tell them I'll be right out, he instructed Lawrence. Once alone, he turned to Meredith. How deep does this go? Deep enough that we need to move carefully, she warned. They're powerful and desperate. And Alara? Is she in danger? They've already tried framing her. Security is monitoring her grandmother's room. But yes, I believe they'll try again. Zane's jaw tightened. Find a way to get her and Eleanor to safety without alerting Knox or Tallulah. Use the private elevator access to the executive suites if necessary. And what will you do? He straightened his tie, armor against the coming confrontation. Buy us time. In the lobby, Tallulah and Dr. Gregory Hampton, the hospital board president, waited impatiently. Tallulah wore an evening gown, clearly interrupted on her way to some gala. Zane, darling, she cooed, kissing his cheek. We've been trying to reach you for hours. I've been busy, he replied coolly. Hampton cleared his throat. Mr. Al-Rashid, there's an urgent matter regarding the foundation. The quarterly disbursement is scheduled for next week, but there are concerns about your proposed changes to the funding allocation. My proposal stands, Zane stated flatly. 50% of all funds will be redirected to patient care and research, not administrative costs or executive compensation. Hampton's face flushed. That's simply impossible. The existing commitments can be renegotiated, Zane finished, or investigated, if necessary. Tallulah stepped closer, lowering her voice. Zane, we need to talk privately. There are contracts, family agreements. You seem to have forgotten. The blood pact. Zane arched an eyebrow. Fascinating document, particularly the clumsily forged addendum. For a split second, Tallulah's composure cracked. Then her trademark smile returned. Don't be dramatic. It's a perfectly legitimate business arrangement our fathers created. Which reminds me, Zane continued casually. I've initiated a full forensic audit of all foundation accounts and expenditures for the past 5 years. The results should be illuminating. Hampton paled visibly. Surely that's excessive. Is it? Recent events suggest otherwise. Zane's gaze locked with Tallulah's, particularly the targeting of a certain nurse and her grandmother. That nurse, Tallulah spat, dropping all pretense, is nothing. A distraction. You're throwing away everything our family's built because some peasant girl batted her eyelashes at you. Careful, Zane warned, his voice deadly quiet. Tallulah stepped back, regaining control. You have obligations, Zane. Legal, binding obligations that won't disappear because you've developed a conscience or an infatuation. Speaking of obligations, Zane replied, I have a dinner meeting. If you'll excuse me. As he turned to leave, Tallulah grabbed his arm. Think carefully about your next steps. Some decisions can't be undone. Her threat hung in the air between them, clear and unmistakable. Later that night, as Alara helped Eleanor settle into the luxurious executive suite Meredith had arranged, she pondered the day's bewildering events. The frame-up, Meredith's unexpected intervention, and now this clandestine relocation to the hotel's most secure floor. A soft knock preceded Zane's entrance. Seeing Eleanor comfortable in bed, he spoke quietly with Alara in the suite sitting room. You'll both be safe here, he assured her. The floor is restricted access only. Safe from what? Alara demanded. What exactly is happening? Zane hesitated, then touched 3 fingers to her wrist, their signal of trust. It's time you knew everything. Dawn broke over Boston as Zane stood in his penthouse, contemplating the city he would soon leave. On his desk lay 3 envelopes. His revised will, leaving 90% of his fortune to various humanitarian causes, resignation letters from all his corporate boards, and detailed evidence of Knox and Tallulah's corruption to be delivered to authorities after his death. The previous night, after explaining everything to Alara, the blood pact, the embezzlement scheme, Knox's medical fraud. He'd seen the horror and pity in her eyes. He couldn't bear it. Couldn't bear her knowing how weak he'd been, letting Tallulah manipulate him for years while patients suffered. His phone buzzed with a message from his attorney confirming that the Eleanor Nightingale Medical Trust was established and funded. At least he would leave one good thing behind. Alara and her grandmother would be taken care of. He poured himself a drink, staring at the bottle of sleeping pills he'd procured months ago. One last act remained, a public announcement of his engagement to Tallulah. The ultimate surrender that would guarantee his death appeared voluntary, not suspicious. Across town in a private Swiss medical clinic, Alara paced anxiously outside her grandmother's room. Dr. Knox had arranged the sudden transfer, claiming Eleanor needed specialized treatment only available here. The facility seemed legitimate, but something felt wrong. The staff was evasive, visitors restricted, and her nursing credentials mysteriously insufficient for access to treatment rooms. Most disturbing, all communication with Zain had been cut off. Her phone couldn't make outgoing calls, and the clinic's internet was mysteriously down. Ms. Nightingale. Dr. Knox approached, immaculate as always. Your grandmother is responding well to the preliminary treatment. I want to see her chart, Alara demanded, and speak with the attending physician. Dr. Reinhardt is in surgery. As for the chart, he gestured vaguely. Swiss medical protocols differ from American ones. Patient confidentiality is particularly stringent. She's my grandmother. I'm her medical proxy. Not here. His smile was cold. In Switzerland, family authorization for experimental treatments requires different documentation. Cold fear gripped Alara. What experimental treatments? I never authorized. Your signature is on the forms. He pulled out a document bearing a reasonable facsimile of her signature. Quite clearly. Forged. Like the medication orders. Like the pills planted in her locker. She was being systematically outmaneuvered. Where's my grandmother now? Resting comfortably before her procedure tomorrow. What procedure? Knox checked his watch. I have a video call with Tallulah and Zain. The engagement announcement is scheduled for this evening. Will you watch? I think you'd find it illuminating. After he left, Alara slipped into a supply closet and found a nurse's uniform. Disguised, she made her way to the records room, where she discovered the clinic was owned by a subsidiary of Blackwood Investments. Worse, she found emails between Knox and the clinic director discussing eliminating complications and ensuring compliance through family pressure. They were using Eleanor as leverage. If Alara interfered with their plans, her grandmother would suffer. If she tried to warn Zain about whatever they were planning, Eleanor would pay the price. In a moment of desperate inspiration, she searched for other patients from Boston. There, in the records, she found it. Photographs documenting the accidental brake failure that killed Zain's family, alongside payment records to the Swiss mechanic who'd tampered with their vehicle. Tallulah had arranged the accident that killed Zain's parents and sister, and now history was about to repeat itself. Back in Boston, Zain prepared for the press conference where he would announce his engagement to Tallulah, the woman who, he was increasingly certain, had murdered his family. But without concrete proof, any accusation would seem like the ravings of a depressed, unstable man. Exactly the narrative Tallulah had been carefully constructing. His phone rang. Meredith. Don't do this, she pleaded. We're close to proving everything. The financial trails, the clinic ownership. It doesn't matter anymore, he said wearily. They have Eleanor. If I don't go through with this, they'll hurt her to control Alara. There's something you should know, Meredith said urgently. My mother didn't just work for your family. She was related to your father, his cousin's daughter. That makes us family, Zain. That's why I've been helping you. I promised your father I would watch over you if anything happened to him. The revelation stunned him. Why tell me this now? Because you need to know you're not alone. And because I just received a message from Alara. His heart stopped. She contacted you? She found a nurse at the clinic willing to smuggle out information. Tallulah was behind your family's accident, Zain. Alara found proof. Rage and grief surged through him, followed by cold clarity. Give me that evidence. And find a way to get Eleanor and Alara out of that clinic. Already working on it. The nurse has agreed to help, and I've contacted trusted security personnel. But Zain, be careful. Tallulah knows she's losing control. That makes her dangerous. After hanging up, Zain picked up the bottle of sleeping pills, staring at it for a long moment. Then, with sudden resolve, he flushed them down the toilet. His family deserved justice, not another victim. Alara deserved someone who would fight for her, not surrender. For the first time in 5 years, he chose to live. As the engagement party preparations continued downstairs, Zain al-Rashid began planning not his death, but his resurrection. The grand ballroom of the Al-Rashid Plaza gleamed with crystal and gold as Boston's elite gathered for what society columns had dubbed the merger of the decade. Television cameras positioned strategically around the room awaited the formal engagement announcement between Zain al-Rashid and Tallulah Blackwood. Tallulah stood near the champagne fountain, resplendent in a designer gown, accepting congratulations with practiced grace. Her triumph was nearly complete. The contract ensuring her control of both family empires was prepared for signing after the announcement. "Have you seen Zain?" she murmured to Dr. Knox, who hovered nearby. "He should have been here 30 minutes ago. Probably working up his courage." Knox smirked. "The man's been half dead for years. And what about our Swiss situation?" "Under control. The grandmother is sedated, the nurse contained. By tomorrow, the old woman will have suffered an unfortunate reaction to experimental treatment, leaving her granddaughter emotionally devastated and financially ruined." Tallulah smiled coldly. "Perfect." Across the room, Meredith Caldwell slipped through the crowd in an elegant gown that concealed both a recording device and a satellite phone. She made eye contact with Lawrence, the hotel manager, who nodded imperceptibly. The security team was in position. The lights dimmed as the master of ceremonies approached the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Zain al-Rashid." Zain entered to polite applause, his face a careful mask of composure. Tallulah glided to his side, taking his arm possessively. "Thank you all for coming," Zain began, his voice steady. "Before I make today's announcement, I'd like to share some extraordinary news." Confusion flickered across Tallulah's face. This wasn't the script they'd rehearsed. The Al-Rashid Foundation is launching a new initiative focused on medical ethics and patient advocacy, Zain continued. "And we're beginning with full transparency about our own operations." The ballroom doors opened, and federal agents entered quietly, positioning themselves around the perimeter. "Our first action," Zain announced, "is to release evidence of systemic fraud within certain Foundation-funded facilities, particularly those overseen by Dr. Remington Knox." Knox froze mid-sip of champagne as his name echoed through the room. "Additionally," Zain continued, "we've uncovered disturbing information regarding the accident that claimed my family's lives 5 years ago." Tallulah's fingers dug into his arm. "What are you doing?" she hissed. Zain ignored her, his gaze fixed on the back of the ballroom, where commotion had erupted. The crowd parted to reveal Alara Nightingale, still in a nurse's uniform, supporting her frail but very much alive grandmother. "Alara," Zain breathed, genuine emotion breaking through his controlled facade. Tallulah's composure shattered. "This is absurd. Security, remove these people immediately." "I'm afraid not." Meredith stepped forward, flanked by hotel security. "Ms. Nightingale and her grandmother are honored guests." Alara moved toward Zain, determination in every step. "You should see these," she said, extending a folder of documents. The clinic kept meticulous records of their arrangement with Ms. Blackwood, including payments to the mechanic who sabotaged your family's car brakes. The murmuring crowd fell silent as Zain accepted the folder. "You're making a terrible mistake," Tallulah snarled, backing away. "Our family's agreement was altered after my father's death," Zain finished. "The original contract recommended a union between our families if mutually beneficial, not mandated it." "Another fraud in your collection, Tallulah." Knox lunged for the exit but was intercepted by federal agents. "This is outrageous. I demand to speak with my attorney." "By all means," Zain replied coldly. "You'll need one." Tallulah's eyes darted around the room, seeking escape. Finding none, she played her final card. "You can't prove anything," she declared. "It's her word against mine. A nobody nurse versus a Blackwood." "Actually," Meredith interjected, "we have sworn testimony from the Swiss mechanic who falsified the brake inspection, banking records of payments from your accounts, and your own recorded conversations with Dr. Knox discussing, how did you phrase it? Eliminating complications." Federal agents approached Tallulah, who backed into a table, sending champagne glasses crashing to the floor. "Ladies and gentlemen," Zain addressed the stunned crowd, moving to stand beside Alara. I apologize for the unexpected drama. Today's announcement is indeed about a union, but not the one you anticipated. He reached for Alara's hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. This woman saved not only her grandmother's life, but mine as well. When I had given up all hope, she reminded me that life has purpose, that integrity matters, that trust can exist even between strangers trapped in an elevator during a snowstorm. Eleanor Nightingale smiled knowingly as cameras flashed, capturing the moment when Zayn raised Alara's hand to his lips. I'm not announcing an engagement today, he continued, but I am announcing the beginning of something genuine, honest, and unexpected, qualities I thought no longer existed in my world. As Tallulah and Knox were escorted from the ballroom in handcuffs, Zayn turned to Alara, oblivious to the watching crowd, and touched 3 fingers to her wrist. You came back, he said softly. I couldn't let you face this alone, she replied. Allies, remember? His smile, the first real one in 5 years, transformed his face. Much more than allies, I hope. Their future was uncertain, filled with legal proceedings, recovery, and the challenge of bridging their different worlds. But as Zayn looked into Alara's eyes, he knew with absolute certainty that he had been given something precious, a second chance at life, and the opportunity to share it with someone who saw beyond his wealth to the man beneath.